Hi everyone, we are Group 2. Today, we're looking at how supply chains are changing, not just to be faster or cheaper, but to be more transparent, accountable, and sustainable. In the past, companies focused more on efficiency, but today, supply chains are being judged on environmental impact, labor practices, and ethical governance. This shift is what we call ESG driven supply chains, and it's quickly becoming a requirement rather than a choice. I'll start by explaining what ESG supply chains are, why they matter, and the key trends shaping them in 2026. At its core, an ESG driven supply chains mean integrating environmental, social, and governance considerations into every stage of product's life cycle, from sourcing raw materials all the way to disposable. Traditionally, supply chains were optimized for cost and speed. The problem is that this model ignored hidden risks. For example, a company might want to reduce cost by outsourcing its production, but that can expose them to forced labor risks, regulatory penalties, and reputational damage. What's changed is the pressure coming from three directions. First, regulations. Governments are no longer asking companies to report ESG performance voluntarily, they are now enforcing it. Second, investors. Capital is increasingly flowing towards companies that can prove sustainability and sustainable practices. And third, and the most important one, consumers. Transparency now directly affects brand trust and sales. So ESG supply chains aren't just about ethics, they are about risk management and long term competitiveness. To respond to this pressures, supply chains are evolving in three major ways. First is visibility. Companies are now tracking emissions, not just within their own operations, but across the entire supply network. This is where Scope 3 emissions become very critical. Second is transparency. Technologies like AI and blockchain are being used to map suppliers beyond the first tire, which was previously used to be a blind spot. Third is predictive capability. Instead of reacting to the issues, firms are starting to use AI systems that detect irregularities, such as unusual labor patterns or energy usage, before they become violations. Looking ahead, the biggest shift is from reporting to enforcement. ESG is no longer a branding exercise, it's becoming a compliance requirement. At the same time, companies face a new challenge, not because of the lack of data available, but the availability of too much unreliable data that's available. So the competitive advantage is now shifting towards firms that can not only collect ESG data, but actually verify and act on it. So overall, ESG driven supply chains represent a shift from efficiency alone to resilience, transparent, transparency, and accountability.
Now let's start with the four-stage evolution of ESG-driven supply chains. First, the germination period before 1991, rooted in early CSR. It focused on basic labor rights and environmental protection. Its supplier code of conduct are the prototype. Practices were fragmented, passive, and only targets core suppliers. Next, the initial stage from 1991 to 2004, EU or US brands launched a formal code of conduct for structured compliance. And the 2004 UN's report, Who Cares Wins, formally defined the ESG framework, shifting from an ad hoc CSR to a structured system, still limited to direct suppliers. Well, then the growth period from 2005 to 2019, UN published the ESG to mandatory compliance covering Scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. Policy drove standardization, expanding management to Tier 2 and 3 suppliers, and integrating ESG into core strategy. Finally, the explosive growth period from 2020 to present. EU regulations like CSRD, CBAM made ESG a supply chain entry barrier, and Scope 3 emissions became the core focus, with digitalization and supply chain collaboration as mainstream. The clear change from passive compliance to active strategy, and from single-dimensional focus to full life cycle value creation. Now let's move to the core operational capitalizations, built on three key pillars, all leveraged by digital empowerment. First, the life cycle governance. It covers every supply chain link, green procurement, low carbon production, sustainable logistics, sales transparency, and product recycling. Second, the stakeholder synergy. ESG supply chains rely on multi-party collaboration, core enterprises as drivers, suppliers as executors, regulations as supervisor, and the investors as capital constraints, forming a complete governance system. Though the metric and the data loop, this solves the what gets managed challenge. Following a closed loop, setting indicators, collecting real-time data, elevating performance, and turning aspect goals into actionable management. And the digital empowerment is the foundation, like the blockchain for traceability, AI for intelligent accounting, IoT for real-time monitoring, and the integrated supply chain management system break down traditional pain points like information asymmetry. In terms of the future development directions, I think we'll turn to standardization, inclusivity, circularity, and the co-creation. First, the global standards and the intelligence. Fragmented standards creates a high cross-border compliance costs. In the future, unified global disclosure standards will reduce the burden, while AI and digital twins enable intelligent real-time ESG management. Second, SME empowerment and resistance. SMEs, the backbone of global supply chains, will be integrated into the ESG ecosystem, while training and financial support will be with ESG risk assessment embodied to boost the supply chain robustness. Third, the circular economy will shift from ends of paper governance to full process circularity, with core enterprises building closed-loop reverse supply chains to maximize resource utilization. And last but not least, stakeholder cooperation. ESG supply chains will move from enterprise-led to multi-party synergy, with companies prioritizing shared value creation for suppliers, employees, consumers, and communities. Okay, I will hand over to Bumi.
Myself, Bhumika Patel. Today I will discuss market and value preposition. First of all, market niches. Manufacturing, retailer logistic, faster moving consumer goods, and pharmaceuticals. The target market for this solution includes key industries such as manufacturing, retailer, logistic, faster moving consumer, and pharmaceuticals. This sector requires efficient, reliable, and transparent supply chain management and operation to remain competitive. The value proposition focuses on improving operational efficiency, reducing cost, and minimizing risk through advanced technology and smarter than logistics systems. Minimizes delays in the production line, ensuring that materials are available when needed and finished goods more efficiently to the next step. And last one, overall, the solution creates a strong competitive advantage by aligning businesses' performance with customer trust and satisfaction. Next one, value preposition. The value preposition clearly highlights benefits for both businesses and for consumer. First, businesses, it focuses on cost saving operation efficiently and reducing operation waste. For consumer, the value lies in transparency, allowing them to see where products come from and how they are handled. It also promotes ethical products by ensuring responsible sourcing and production policies. As a result, these factors help build trust, leading to stronger relationships between businesses and consumers. Directly impacts the bottom line by cutting down on operational and transparent expenses, keeps the consumer informed with real-time updates on delivery progress. Thank you.
With the next two slides, I will be talking about the core features and services of a sustainable supply chain. A sustainable supply chain is all about ensuring that your business is eco-friendly, people-focused, and ethically run from the moment a raw material is picked up to the final product reaching the customer. The three core features of ESG, or environmental, social, and governance, is environmental, social, and governance. The environmental feature is about going green and reducing the physical mess that your business leaves behind. This is seen when cleaner trucks are used to cut pollution or to burn less fuel when moving goods. Using the circular model, where goods can be recycled, reused, they help to reduce the weight. And also tracking hidden emission is another important element of environmental feature, where carbon footprint is measured. Saving resources like using less water and avoiding material that causes deforestation is also important in securing a safe environment. The social feature focuses on the human side, treating everybody with dignity and respect, preventing child forced labor, and creating a safe working environment for people, promoting diversity and inclusion as well, and community engagement is very important to share any impact of operations in the community. Governance is all about transparency, making sure that everything is publicly disclosed and reported, where bribery and fraud across the supply chain is prevented. And there should be contractual provisions where buyers are allowed to visit facilities, verify certifications, and these core features, they focus on visibility, compliance, and resilience. Three key services that make sustainable ESG supply chain more effective. First is traceability. Companies track materials from the source to the final product, giving full visibility in how items are made, ensuring suppliers meet environmental and social standards. Second is operational efficiency. By reducing waste, optimizing transport, and improving energy use, businesses cut costs, it lowers emission, and it builds more resilient supply chain. And finally, the regulatory compliance. With ESG, or environmental social governance, regulations increasing worldwide, and companies need accurate reporting. They're responsible for sourcing and strong governance to meet legal requirements and to maintain trust. So together, traceability, efficiency, and compliance, they create a supply chain that is transparent, responsible, and built for long-term success. Thank you very much.
In this section, I will present Walmart as a case of an ESG-driven supply chain enabled by digital systems. As shown on the slide, the first point is core strategy. Walmart introduces sustainability mandates that require suppliers to improve their environmental performance. These requirements go beyond the final product and include production processes such as emissions and resource use. So here, sustainability is not separate. It is embedded directly into supply chain operations. The second point is governance logic. Walmart acts as a dominant retailer with strong influence over its suppliers. Because many suppliers depend on Walmart, they are incentivized to comply with these ESG requirements. This allows Walmart to enforce standards across the entire supply chain. So ESG becomes a system-level transformation, not just a short-term compliance. The third point is system integration, which is the most important part. Walmart uses standardized ESG metric and digital reporting platform to monitor suppliers' performance. Suppliers upload their data into a centralized system, allowing real-time tracking and KPI-based evaluation. This improves transparency, visibility, and continuous optimization across the supply chain. So overall, this case shows that ESG can be implemented as a data-driven and integrated system, supported by governance and digital infrastructure. Now, I will explain the outcomes and key insights from this case. First, looking at the outcomes. Walmart's sustainability initiatives improve efficiency and resilience by reducing waste and optimizing resource use. Firms can achieve long-term cost advantages. So ESG is not only about sustainability, it also improves performance. Second, the key drivers. As shown on the slide, strong buyers' power is critical. Walmart can enforce requirements across a large number of suppliers, enabling large-scale adoption. At the same time, data-driven systems allow firms to monitor performance in real time and continuously optimize results. So ESG becomes a controllable and measurable process. Finally, the critical insights. There are also challenges. Suppliers often face higher short-term costs because they need to invest in new processes. In addition, the benefits are not always evenly distributed. The focal firm may gain more value, while suppliers bear more cost. This shows that ESG outcomes depend on power relationships within the supply chain. So, in conclusion, this case demonstrates that ESG-driven supply chains can be effective when supported by governance, digital systems, and coordination. At the same time, it highlights the importance of balancing value and cost across stakeholders.
ESG is often seen as a force for good, but when it's driven by pressure instead of transparency, it can create a lot more risk than value. I'm going to begin with this statement. I'm going to talk about greenwashing first, what it means. Many organizations exaggerate their ESG performance without delivering real impact because verification is limited and can make sustainability claims misleading rather than meaningful. This damages not only trust in one company but in ESG as a whole. Secondly, ESG pressure can backfire a lot of times. Large organizations often impose strict ESG requirements on small suppliers, but small suppliers can lead to reduced margins and even forcing them out of the market some of the times. So instead of improving sustainability, it is actually about creating inequality. There are a lot of more risks associated with ESG, and four major operational risks come hand in hand with that. So high implementation costs, companies must heavily invest in systems, audits, and reporting. Data reliability issues. ESG is often inconsistent across global suppliers. Supplier resistance. Smaller firms may lack financial or operational capacity. power imbalance, large buyers may push ESG pressure downstream. All of these shows that ESG is not just an ethical issue, but also a practical and economic challenge. I'm gonna close with the slide with a good example, which is Walmart. If its ESG success partly depended upon supplier compliance, but this pressure isn't always sustainable for small partners. So this brings us to the key question: what are the limitations, and what can we learn? Sustainability only works when responsibility is shared, not pushed into one part of the system. I'm going to talk about some limitations, and one of them is supply chain complexity. Global supply chains are often complex and multi-layered, making it difficult to fully track ESG impact. There's a cost versus sustainability trade-off. ESG increases short-term costs while long-term benefits are unevenly distributed. Governance and accountability gaps. Weak enforcement and lack of standardization reduce real impact. Unequal value distribution. Large firms capture most profits while smaller suppliers bear the higher costs. So ESG in practice is not as balanced as it appears. There are a few key four things that we learn out of this. That number one would be ESG must be collaborative, not imposed. We need transparent and verifiable data systems. Companies should invest in building supplier capability. And finally, profitability must be balanced with sustainability goals. Ultimately, I'm going to close by stating ESG succeeds not when it's enforced, but when it's shared. Thank you.
This is Deepak Upreti. My student ID is 1692654. To wrap up our presentation, I want to address the so what. If you take only one thing away today, let it be this: the ESG. ESG is the new definition of supply chain excellence. So in 2026, a sustainable supply chain is no longer a marketing gimmick or a marketing line. It is way more than what we market. So it is a must to operate now. Companies that fail to track their tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers are not just failing the planet, they are also exposing themselves to legal, financial, and operational risks. So here are the key takeaways of our presentation. Compliance is the new baseline. So with regulations like EU's CSRD and global carbon taxes, not knowing what happens in your supply chain is a big no. It's dangerous for organization. The organization who can't track their supply chain, so they can invite legal liabilities on them. And data is the enabler now. We have moved from past manual audits and the real-time IoT Internet of Things tracking, AI-driven risk mapping, and blockchain transparency are the tools that make net zero possible these days. And now companies need to shift their fundamental values. So profitability through purpose. So ESG driven chains see 15 to 20% higher operational reduction in waste and gain access to green financing with lower interest rates. And the last point here is the consumer loyalty. Modern consumers don't just buy a product, they buy the provenance of that product. Provenance means, I mean, they want to know the origin of the product, the DNA of the product, how the product is produced, supplied to them. So consumers pattern behavior is very bullish these days. So transparency build a brand moat that competitors cannot easily cross. So the next question is, what is the roadmap forward? So we need to do three things which is ideal for businesses. So first thing is mapping. So we need to gain 100% visibility beyond direct suppliers. So we need to go beyond our tier one suppliers. So we need to map and see what our tier two, tier three suppliers are doing. And second one is monitor. We need to move from annual audits to 24 into 7 digital monitoring. And the third one is mitigate. We need to proactively shift sourcing to low carbon ethical partners before a crisis hits. Uh, as we look forward towards 2030 goals, the companies standing on this stage in 5 years won't be the one who saved the most cents on shipping containers. They will be the one who built a supply chain that can survive a changing climate, a shifting regulatory landscape, and an increasingly conscious consumer base. Sustainability isn't it a cost center now? It's your greatest competitive advantage. With this, thank you so much.